everyone. Good morning, Steluta. Good morning, Dr. Cheryl.
Good
Good morning,
morning.
Han. How are you, ladies?
Yeah,
Oh,
well, please leave in the comments where you're from. And thank you, Cheryl, for joining us today. I know you had a very busy week. You just landed yesterday from Bahamas, so thank you for joining us.
I
And
really appreciate it. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
yeah,
Yeah, we have a really cool topic that we're going to discuss today, and I think we've been doing in various ways that for throughout our show. And it's one of the topics that we're going to cover today is how to become the best version of yourself, right? And this is what we were talking about even earlier, just before joining the live. How do you do that? And what happens after you push through, because sometimes what's holding us back is the fears and everything. So we're going to cover that with Dr. Cheryl Wood today. So meanwhile, guys, please do leave in the comments below, where are you watching us from, uh, how do you feel about this topic today? Okay.
okay, well, let me introduce Dr. Cheryl. Um, she's the CEO of Global Speakers University, a public speaking training and development company. She's an international keynote speaker, TEDx speaker, and 19 times best-selling author. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Congratulations! Oh wow, we have a lot of things to learn from you. She trained and empowered entrepreneurs across the United States, in South Africa, India, France, United Kingdom, Jamaica, Bahamas, and many other destinations. Dr. Wood has been featured on ABC, Forbes magazine, and the list is very long. She delivered the keynote presentations for organizations like NASA, the United States, the FBI, woohoo, United States Department of Defense, and she is the recipient of the 2022 President's Lifetime Achievement Award for her work of empowering women to develop economic independence through entrepreneurship. Congratulations, really. I'm so proud that you made it so far. Uh, my first question, what clicked in the first place to go through this path, this amazing path?
Yeah, the click. I love that question. The click was I was tired of existing in life and I wanted to live it. Like we get one time to make this life the most amazing, the most phenomenal, most epic story of all times. And I'm like, I don't want to waste that. I don't want to waste that one time around. And I knew I needed something different. I needed to fill a void that was inside that made me feel like I wasn't fully living life all out. And I'd become a mom, I'd become a wife. So I was doing kind of what was expected. I feel like a lot of times of us as women, I was fulfilling my responsibilities, but I wasn't pursuing my possibilities. And I knew there had to be some way to connect the two. Yeah, I can fulfill my responsibilities to my family and my marriage and my kids, but what about my possibilities that fills me as a person so that I get to leave my fingerprint on this world outside of my titles as wife, mother, daughter, and all the other roles that I fill. So it was that craving for something bigger, something more grandiose, that would make my life bigger than me and that would leave a fingerprint on the world.
Wow, amazing, amazing journey. Because we have been connected for a long time, and I've seen how you evolved and all the things that you achieved, and it's really amazing. And I know behind stories of success like this, there is also challenges.
Oh my good. How long do we have? How long is this session?
30
The challenges
minutes.
are massive. The challenges are always massive. And it's so funny. People will tell you this is where I started and this is where I am now. I have this phenomenal life. But I always say, talk about what happens in the middle. What happened in the middle? Because for me, I got knocked down more times than I can count. I had so many challenges and obstacles and setbacks that made me want to throw in the towel. But it was a commitment to living a full life to really showing appreciation and gratitude for the gifts that I've been given, and that one time to make it really, really juicy and yummy and to touch other people's lives, that allowed me to have the spirit of resilience to keep getting back up over and over and over again and to really be committed to living my fullest life.
Well,
Yeah.
I, as much as I do appreciate the commitment in itself, and we here are both of us, me and Hannah, also committed to our purpose, and we're doing what we love, and this is what drives us. We also know a lot of people are committed to their path, but sometimes, as you said, you feel like throwing in the towel. So,
Yeah.
what were you doing? Do you have any strategies that you can share with our audience in regards to what you were specifically doing when you felt like that? When you felt that whatever you were doing was not coming to fruition, when you felt that maybe your efforts were not rewarded to according to your expectations, especially when you start off on a new path,
Yeah.
right? You need to be very consistent, and start off with certain expectations, which they come from your set of values and beliefs and experiences, but have nothing to do with what you're building, and there's no reference system that you can use in order to do that. So can you share with us a few of your strategies to really get back on track and recommit to what we're doing, despite the challenges, despite having maybe pushbacks, despite having your own mind probably as an enemy, as many times happens to all of us, right? Because we talk about the fact that probably the biggest enemy of all of us being successful in life, regardless of the field, right, professional or personal, is our own mind. So
Yeah. Yeah,
please
I
share
love
with
that.
us a
So
few
I,
things.
I think just in terms of implementable things, the first thing I did was make a decision that I was going to change my own internal dialogue. So I grew up in a space of poverty. I didn't come from much. I didn't come from a long line of entrepreneurs or people who were successful or wealthy or prosperous. I came from really people who just were, honestly, my family was beneath the poverty line. And in the environment I grew up, a lot of times we were told you're just going to be another statistic. So I had to fight not only my fears about whether or not I could truly be a giant in the world, and those fears weren't only connected to what I was experiencing in the moment of taking big risks, but those fears stemmed from a long history of what I had been taught and told and what I had witnessed even as a child growing up. And so there was a lot of head trash that I was dealing with. So the first thing I did was commit to shifting what I told myself so that I could believe something different inside, which would ultimately produce different results. So every day I would challenge the way I talk to myself. And instead of saying, oh, you're just going to be another statistic, you're never going to be able to succeed, nobody's going to believe in you, I started saying, Cheryl, you are a magnet for success. You are a magnet for wealth and abundance and prosperity. Somebody somewhere in the world is waiting on you to show up. Now, the funny part is, after I would say those words out loud, because you need to hear yourself expressing those thoughts so that your subconscious mind eventually takes over. But in the moment, sometimes you say it and you don't even believe it. So I said it, but I didn't believe it yet. So I would burst out laughing because I still had to get up, get dressed, and go to the job that I didn't love, even though I was speaking these great things about, oh, abundance and wealth and prosperity. And that wasn't my truth or my reality in that moment. But that's the beautiful thing about consistency. Even when it's not producing what you want it to produce in the moment, if you stick with it, if you give it an opportunity to produce something other than what you've already experienced, it will ultimately produce. So I didn't know at the time that every time I spoke those words when I got up in the morning and still had to get dressed and go to the job I didn't love and live the life that I was just kind of existing in, that it was doing something inside. It was shifting my subconscious mind. And the more my subconscious mind shifted and took over, my actions would start to become in alignment with what my beliefs were. Well, how did my beliefs change? By what my subconscious mind started to take in. So for me, it was shifting how I talk to myself, saying affirmations, positive affirmations out loud, even when I didn't believe them, because that wasn't my reality in that moment. That was number one. Number two was changing my community of people and going around people who are already living a life that I dreamed about living, people who are already walking in their calling and their brilliance and the thing that they have been assigned to do in the world. And watching how they move and how they function and watching them get knocked down and then get back up became inspiration for me to say, wow, if they are still getting knocked down at this high level that they're at, then who am I to think that I'm not going to get knocked down? And I'm trying to get just a tenth of where they are. So I started to really shift the people that I was around, which started to impact how I moved. It started to impact what I expected as a part of the journey. And then I think that's the third part is I stopped expecting the journey to be without difficulty, because if it were without difficulty, would I really value it? No. I tell my clients every day, if you haven't been through anything, you can't teach anybody anything. So
Exactly.
we really should start to open our arms up to embrace the difficulties, the challenges, the tough spots where it's not going the way that we want it to go, because we know that there is such a great lesson in it that will allow us to be of more value to the people that we're called to serve. So stop seeing the challenges as this thing that's so hard that I can't make it through. Instead, see it as, wow, this is a blessing that's going to make me so much better for the people now I'm called to serve, because now I can teach them something that they didn't already know. So it was shifting all of those things, my own internal dialogue and the affirmations, my community and the people that I was around, and my expectation of what getting to success would involve.
Wow, it's amazing. These three steps, I think, yeah, it wrap up everything. Like shifting the mindset, and I wish we can teach this from very early age. I just
Yeah.
wrote a post yesterday about this because this is something that everyone should learn from very early age, not until the university or until we have 40 years old, we got tired from everything we do and then we decide to go for something different. Changing the environment also is crucial, because when you are surrounded with people who lift you up, people who believe in you, people who share your values, people who really has the mindset of success, it becomes easier than people who drag you down, because the people usually when they share with you their opinion is always based on their fears, and I think you
Right.
experience that. And then of course changing our perspective regarding failure is also crucial, because that helps us see the opportunity within the mass, trying to turn our pain into gain, and this is really very big. I just wonder. I read about your 19 books, best-selling books, and really very inspiring. Tell us about your first book, because this is the most important thing, maybe, because once you start the first one and second one, the rest it becomes easy. How did you get that? How did you get there? And what were also the challenges to be an author?
Yeah, so I always say my preference is to express myself verbally versus in writing. And so just considering the idea and consuming the idea of putting together a whole book was that was fearful for me in itself, because it's not my preferred method of articulation and communication. So I had to get out of my own way with that and realize that if you're considering yourself to be an expert or an authority in any matter, subject matter, you have to write a book about it, because not everybody's going to be in the room to hear you express it verbally at the conference or the training and development event or whatever the thing might be. There are some people who are going to get a hold of that book, and that's going to be the way that they're going to be able to consume what you're teaching and your message to the world. So I knew that it was a necessity, but a part of it was perfection paralysis. And it's almost like when you're speaking, we know that you're not perfect. So you might fumble a word here or there, or it might not come out exactly right. And I think that's acceptable almost. But it's almost like when you write a book, it's like people sometimes tend to expect perfection. So I stood in my own way for a long time, because I was like, I have to make sure it's perfect. It's never going to be perfect. And that's what I had to get to. It's never going to be perfect. I have New York Times best-selling books on my shelf that have typos in them. So why am I spazzing out and holding my greatness from the world? Because I'm so attached to perfection. So I always shift to excellence versus perfection. Did you do it in excellence? Did you give it your best? Did you hire the best people who could help you to get it to a space where it is done in excellence. If it's done in excellence, discard perfection, because then you also not only you hold yourself hostage to that, to a bar that's unachievable, but you also teach other people that if they're going to follow in your footsteps, they've got to be perfect. So you don't win either way. So for me, it was getting out of my own way in terms of perfection. That was number one. And then it was, what do you want this book to be reflective of? What do you want it to represent? Is this going to be a biography, a bibliography? Is it going to be a memoir? Is it going to be a self-help book? Is it going to be a journal type of book? It was really going through the whole process of writing a book and what I wanted it to look like, feel like, how did I want it to make people feel when they picked it up. So for that first book, and the first book was titled How I Flatlined and Woke Up in 45 Days, I knew the title had to be magnetic, which is why I chose that title. And I didn't literally flatline, but symbolically, I had flatlined in my life because I wasn't living it to its fullest, because I was going to a job that paid the bills, but didn't nurture my spirit, because I wasn't walking according to divine assignment and the divine calling on my life, because I hadn't discovered and stepped into what real purpose and passion look like. So I considered that or compared that to flatlining physically. And it was more of a symbolic. But it was, how did I wake up and snap out of that flatline state? It was, again, going back to what we just talked about, it was, what were the words that I was feeding to myself? What was I saying to myself every day to snap out of that state of flatline? And so I took myself on a 45-day journey of shifting my toxic words and toxic beliefs into positive, reassuring, empowering, and reaffirming words that will become beliefs. And so I shared those mantras, I shared those affirmations for 45 days in the book so that someone else who felt like they had flatlined and were just existing could have somewhat of a roadmap, a beginning roadmap, so they too could start to come out of that flatline state.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Yeah,
Stay.
thank you for sharing that. I think we're all fans of affirmations for sure. I have a deck that I created for health affirmations. I have some books that I also wrote with affirmations for health, for body image, for pregnancy, because I remember the things that I was saying to myself when I was pregnant, for example, and I know the struggles that women go through when they're pregnant.
I
And
have mine too every morning.
and I think we all believe that these are powerful tools. Affirmations are really powerful tools to help us shift the inner dialogue, as you said. And Hanan mentioned your latest book, and I wanted to talk about it also a bit because it is a really interesting book, Cracking the Code of Success, right? And I think it speaks to the topic of today, right? How do you become the best version of yourself? How do you become successful? And how do you also, maybe that's you can write a sequel, how do you stay at the top of your game, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things I'll say, so I was honored to author that book alongside Brian Tracy, the incomparable Brian Tracy, which was such a joy and an honor. And the thing that I talk about in my specific portion of the book is cracking the code of success through your voice and understanding that it doesn't matter where you are in your journey. If you're at the beginning stage, you're mid level, you're seasoned, all of us have a voice that is meant to impact the world in a bigger way. And too many of us are keeping ourselves on mute. We literally have our voices muted because we're comparing ourselves to other people who are sharing their voices and we think we're not good enough. And there's a quote that I live by that says, comparison is the thief of all joy. It will rob you of your joy over and over and over again. Every time you're looking to your left or looking to your right and comparing yourself to someone else's story or what they've accomplished or what they have or how many followers they have. You know, we're in this world of social media and everybody banks everything on how many followers or likes you have. So sometimes it gets muddled in terms of the impact of you as one person. You can make massive impact in the world. There's 7.6 billion people on the planet. Trust me when I tell you there's a segment of the population that is waiting for, in fact, let me backtrack out of that, that is praying for you to show up and share what you know. and share what lessons you've learned through your own life experiences and the knowledge that you've added in as a part of your journey. So the question simply becomes, are you sharing it? Are you speaking up? Are you being vulnerable and sharing some of the messy parts of life that you've been
Mm-hmm.
through? That is a part of success, and it's a part of healing. And all of us need those things. We need healing. So when you share it, when you're open and you're vulnerable and you're raw and you're authentic in sharing with people the messy parts of your life, the times where you didn't know how you were going to make it out of that situation or that thing that was kind of stepping on you, and you share that, you get healing by sharing, but then you elevate others, you empower others, you inspire others. And if you're not doing that in life, what are you really doing? So that book was really a beautiful compilation of about 9 people who shared their own testimony of cracking the success code. And for me, it's all about opening your mouth, turning up the volume on what you know, not running and hiding in shame from some of the things that you've been through that have been the difficult parts of your life, but rather really unveiling those things and pulling back what we call pulling back the black curtain so that you can touch more lives, you can impact more people. And again, the thing that we're all aiming for, you can create a legacy that will long outlive your physical body.
Yeah, well, I can relate to every single word you said because the more we are authentic, I remember when I have, well, I do seminars for women in politics, and my experience in that was I may spend like weeks preparing for my presentation, and once there, I forget about everything. And the only thing that made sense is being true, sharing my
Yeah.
story, because this is what most people value. They don't care about your credential, they don't care about your degrees and where you come from. They listen to you because you prove to be true and, just as you said, just human, like showing your vulnerability, showing your failure, maybe sharing your failures and so on. And this is how you make people also trust you and connect with you. And I don't know,
Absolutely.
I don't know why this is such a difficult thing today for, I would say, most people, because we are on the like the degrees and the status and the prestige and so on. You can do both. I mean, I guess the more you are vulnerable and true to yourself, the more you get people to respect you for who you are, and not the opposite.
Yeah. And I think we've become a society of people who wear masks. We're always wearing a mask, like, oh, everything's okay and everything's wonderful and life is, and sometimes life is not so wonderful. Sometimes life has gut punched you in an area of life that you didn't expect, you didn't anticipate, and you don't know how you're going to get up from it. But we've become so adjusted to wearing a mask of everything's always okay. And so we need to show people what it means to have a heart to heart connection. And heart to heart connection, like you said, it's built on storytelling. It's built on truth. It's built on vulnerability. It's built on, let me share with you all the messy parts that you don't get to see because you see me on the stage for many of the speaking opportunities I go to. People see me on the stage and they're like, oh, this lofty speaker who has always had it all together. And I'm like, please, let's just discard that right now. And let me share with you where I come from, because all of us have seasons and all of us have chapters to this thing called life. And some of them are yummy and delicious and wonderful. And some of them are trying and challenging and can break us down to a space where we feel like we can't press through. One of the biggest challenges that I've had just recently is I have a twin sister, a biological twin sister. We're 2 minutes apart. We're so close. And in August of 2020, her baby boy died. My nephew, 20
Oh,
years young, 20, like
wow.
just getting started with his life, going into his junior year of college, being looked at to be drafted by the NFL, such a bright light in the world, and was tragically taken in a motorcycle crash.
Wow.
Changed our lives, broke us down where we didn't know how we were going to get back up, how we were going to press through to do the things we've been called to in the world. So you can have a plan all you want, and you can think it's going to go one way, and life will gut punch you, and you have to detour to a completely different path. The question is, are you willing to get back up? Are you willing to dust off? Are you willing to have a new norm and figure out, how do I press through in this new norm? How do I still find my strength in this trying, difficult situation? How do I still live the best life that I can? And how do I take this moment that feels like I am just broken? How do I take this and still make it bigger than me? How do I change it around where I'm not so focused on my pain that I get in the way of me being purposeful to someone else? So now my sister is able to take her pain and turn it into purpose by speaking to other moms who have lost their children, which is the most unnatural thing anyone will ever experience. But because of her strength and getting back up and being committed to living her best life, even now in the midst of such heartbreak, she will now give another woman, another mother, strength to get up when she feels like she can't get up because she'll watch my sister get up. So everything that we go through is for a bigger purpose, it's for a bigger calling on your life. And you have to decide, am I going to answer the call? Or am I going to sit and wallow in the pain of something that life has thrown at me that I didn't expect and that has broken me down? Or am I going to get back up and show and develop and build strength and resilience?
Well, I'm
Exactly.
sorry for your loss, and thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
Uh, we are here. If we are here, me and Saluta, is because we came from stories of pain and struggles. Um, I lost my right eye when I was 9 years old, and I
Mm,
had to live a life with a lot of medical deceptions
mm,
and a lot of really chronic pain, physical pain. And at some point, exactly what you said, at some point, I had two choices: either to keep feeling bad about what happened and miserable, or to take a decision and use that as a mean to grow and evolve and help others. And I think that's why we are all on this mission of empowering others, because we were hurt and deceived and maybe struggled. And this is the beauty: is okay, we had, as you said, there are parts of us that struggled in the past, but there are part of us that seek this change and empowering others to make sense of our lives.
mhm.
So
Uh,
true. And just I just want to acknowledge Ambreen and her comment, who says, very true. When we share our stories, people gain courage and inspiration from us, right? Because it's very easy to wallow in your pain and to get disappointed and to feel that you're secluded and there's nobody there, right? But when we open our hearts and share our stories and our struggles and how we overcame them, we inspire other people, and that's one of the powers of sharing the stories, right? Besides the fact that it's also healing for all of us, right? As we share our story, as your sister is supporting other women, her sharing her story empowers other women, but at the same time is healing for her, right? Me talking
Yeah.
about my childhood abuse, my trauma, my sexual abuse, and Hanan talking about the loss of her eye, you now talking about your origins, your background, and sharing the story here just helps us, all of us, move forward and grow stronger from our stories and grow also stronger together, because we know that we are not here in this thing alone,
Yes.
right?
And sometimes when you hear someone else's story, immediately you get out of your own way because you're like, well, what am I complaining about? I don't know if you've ever had this. Like,
yes, oh
okay, she's
yes.
dealing with that thing and she's still smiling and she's still showing up in this thing called life and she's still pressing forward. Then why am I sitting still? So it's hearing other people's stories sometimes can bring you back to that reality of, okay, it might be bad, but it could be worse. So let me take what I've been given, this deck, this hand of cards that I've been given, and let me play it as it is until I'm on the other side of it.
Exactly. It helps you shift perspective, right? And see that things are not as bad as they seem when you're where you're at. It's not that bad when you compare yourself to, when you look at others and hear their stories. And even though comparison, it's not a good thing, sometimes it does help when you see other people's struggles and what they were able to overcome, right? Like
Absolutely.
losing your child, which is so unnatural. This is something that, puts things into a different perspective. When you have other things that you're struggling with, it makes your whole life look different when you look at things like that, right?
Yeah.
Exactly, and this is also how I first started. I started reading about stories of other successful people, and I noticed that all of them, almost all of them, struggled and they succeeded. And I was like, okay, well, there is nothing extraordinary except that we should stick to what we want and then keep going. These people, they believed in themselves. They had a vision for themselves. They wanted to overcome their obstacles and didn't give up. So what's the difference? We are all the same. The only difference is that some persist and some give up.
That's it. That's it.
And, and
We all
that's
have the
why,
same potential.
exactly, we all have the same potential. So I was thinking about, since we're talk about resilience in this show, in your opinion, how creating a best version of ourselves can help us grow resilient?
Yeah. So when you're creating the best version of yourself, you realize you don't have time to stay down. If you're down, then you're not moving towards the next thing. And there's a quote that I live by, and the quote simply says, "The thing that is not growing is dying." And when you
Wow.
think about that and really let that resonate in your spirit, you're like, if I'm not growing, then what's really happening to my life, to me? And the only way to grow is to be in motion towards the next thing. It's a verb. You have to be in action. So I don't have time to sit still and, as we mentioned earlier, wallow in the stuff that's trying to drag me down. And sometimes again, it's ourselves, it's our own negative thoughts and beliefs. Sometimes it's our environment and we're around the wrong people and they're not pouring into us, and that can get us down. Sometimes it's the challenges that life throws our way that we can't control. But the thing you can control is being a problem solver and someone who looks for solutions instead of the person who just sits and says, I just want to stay here. You know, here in the United States, we get, where I'm located, DC, typically between December and February, we always get some level of snow and ice. And I always share with my clients, I've never seen a grown person fall on the ice and people come to aid that person and say, let's help you get up. And they say, no, I just want to stay here. No, I don't want to get up. I don't want to move. I'm just going to stay right here. Like that would be absurd if we ever saw that or experienced that with someone. So why do we think it's any different as it relates to getting up and being resilient and bouncing back when we're knocked down by life? There should be an expectation from yourself that I will never allow myself to stay down. I got knocked down and maybe I couldn't control that part. But what I do control is getting up and how quickly I get back up. That's always a choice. And so the question becomes, what is driving your choice to get back up? What's driving and fueling your desire and your energy and your passion about getting up and continuing to be in motion so that you can get back to living the best version of you that you possibly can? And what I'm hoping from this conversation, if it's not already happening, is that you will include drivers that are not only your own internal dialogue and self talk, but what you read, what you look at, what you listen to, who's supporting you, who's on your front row cheering for you. Are you going into places where they're celebrating you and accelerating you and helping you to elevate? All of those things matter as it relates to us getting up so that we can continue to live a phenomenal life, even in the midst of challenge, obstacle, setback. That's supposed to be a part of it. Because if you don't have those things, you really don't have a story. Have you ever noticed in any story that you read, whether it's from a little child storybook all the way up to the books that we read now, there's always a protagonist, there's always an antagonist, there's always challenge, there's always something that's challenging the person who's supposed to be the hero. There's always a challenge that hero is facing. If there's no challenge, there's no story.
Exactly.
So you have to embrace that that's going to be a part of your journey for the long haul, for as long as you're living and breathing. So stop trying to run from the challenge and instead challenge yourself to get back up from the challenge as quickly as you possibly can.
Couldn't
Beautifully
agree
said.
more. Exactly. Thank you. So beautiful said. Yeah. I think we, is there anything else that you want to share with the audience before we end the live?
Let's
Yeah,
say a last advice, maybe.
there is a quote that I love by Tony Robbins, and he says, "A real decision is measured by the fact that you've taken a new action. And if there is no new action, you have not truly decided." What is the new action that you're going to choose today so that you demonstrate to the world that you've decided to play all out, that you've decided to be the best version of you, that you've decided to be, as my good friend Les Brown says, the masterpiece that you are created to be? Every single one of us is a masterpiece just waiting to be unveiled in the world. But too many of us keep the curtain covered over that masterpiece because we're afraid to get out and show our true selves to the world, or we're playing in the space of perfection paralysis, or we're playing in the space called procrastination or negative self talk. All of us have something that we're battling that prevents us from unveiling the masterpiece that we've been called to be. So, my challenge is make a decision starting this moment, not 6 months from now, not next year when we hit January, because in January, everybody just starts to be a new version of themselves again. No, no, let's do it today. From this moment, starting today, decide that you're going to be the best version of you just by being a little bit better every day, a small
Exactly.
percent every day better. And before you know it, you'll be living this life that you dreamed of, that you thought, wow, will this ever come to fruition? And it will, because there's nothing, you cannot plant seeds and the seed never sprouts. Now, it might take longer depending on what type of plant of seed you planted. It might take longer for it to sprout and produce than something else. A bonsai tree takes much longer than a regular plant. So if we're growing bonsai trees, then we've got to expect that it's going to be a process. Be
Exactly.
committed to the process. Keep showing up, keep growing, keep elevating, keep challenging, and just remember that the world is waiting on you to be convinced that you are enough. You're not waiting on the world to convince you that you're enough. The world is waiting on you to believe and convince that you are enough, and they want to benefit from everything that you're holding. So share what you know in the world, show up consistently. Don't ever give yourself permission to give up, and just know that you are indeed a masterpiece.
Yeah, well, thank you, thank you. I one of the stories that it really inspired me is Les Brown, the story of Les Brown, and how he struggled when he was a kid, and that the fact that he was told that he's mentally retarded, and look at him right now.
Yes,
And this is how people perceive you. The reality is something else, and this reality that you create is a decision. Either
yes,
you let people define you, define who you are, or you define what you want to be and what you want to become. Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you so much for this wonderful share. I just want to share some of the comments of our guests. Paying into purpose, inspiring from strategy. Yes, indeed. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, David. Thank you, LinkedIn
Yes.
user.
Exactly. Thank you guys for showing up. Before we leave, Cheryl, can you please share with our audience where they can connect with you, where they can find you, and find your books and your work?
Yes, I would love for you to connect with me on social media at Cheryl Empowers, CHERYLEMPOWERS, Cheryl Empowers. I hang out on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. You can connect with me there. And you can connect with me and find out some of the great things that I have coming up by going to CherylEmpowers.com on the web.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in with us today for another episode of The Path to Resilience. We had today Dr. Cheryl Wood with the topic of how to become the best version of yourself. Until next Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, stay safe, stay well, and see you next Tuesday, guys. Bye, everyone.